My first question, Brenton, is what did you think this experience was going to be like coming into it, and what was it actually for you?
So I really didn't know what to expect coming into it. I had one conversation with Sam, and he had told me that it was a gathering for experienced designers and for creative individuals who want to make special moments for people to come together in a different country. And I didn't really know much more than that. And I know that there are a number of similar programs out there where it's more focused on sort of digital nomads. And so, quite honestly, I was a little bit worried that it would just be an experience where people who just wanted to work remotely in some different country just came together, and that would be the extent of it. But that was really not the case at all. It was a very profound experience where so many amazing people came together to do all manner of events. There were mindful experiences, there were, meditative yoga-based experiences. There was a concert in a hammam with these incredible European classical musicians. There were excursions in the desert, incredible photo and video content opportunities. And so there was just so much spirit of collaboration, and I didn't really expect that.
Beautiful. What about this surprised you the most? And maybe what's been like a happiest surprise from the month?
I think what surprised me the most was I had a conversation with someone where it was, I think, day 2 or day 3. We had been talking. It was the first conversation that I'd had with this person. And I told them, I was like, I feel a little bit out of place sometimes in most communities, even though I've been in so many communities around the world. And she just looked at me in my eyes and was like, I feel the exact same way. And she was like, I would argue that a lot of other people perhaps might feel that way, that the way we live with intention, the way we want to explore as many cultures as possible, the way we want to break out of the mold, it can be isolating. But when you have a lot of people who all live with that same intention, then it can really form really strong bonds of community. And so I think that surprised me, that I felt that there was so much resonance with people in terms of how people live, how they look at the world, and that in that sense, I felt a lot less alone than I had before coming to Experience House.
What is Experience House? Like, how would you describe what we're doing here to someone else?
Experience House is a month-long creative laboratory where people from all over the world come together for one concentrated period of time to smash atoms in the form of ideas, in the form of experimentation with creative concepts, and with the form of exchanging knowledge. So it's a place where one can experiment with things you couldn't do in almost any other environment, whether it's combining food and music, whether it's combining live visual art with meditative experiences. It's a place where there are so many tools at your disposal, and you can use those tools to create a live experience, or sometimes even a time-based experience for other people, and to find freedom in that experimentation, but also to live in a community where you can feel seen and where everyone is really looking out for each other to advance themselves in the world, to have a greater impact, and to live with more intention.
How do you feel like this is different from some of the other communities or experiences that you've been a part of? And what about this is unique?
Yeah, I think for me, the most unique part was the emphasis on actually creating. And what I mean by that is, with a lot of other communities that I've been a part of, there might be one activity that it's designed around, right? Maybe it's designed around exploration of nature or martial arts or something. And so there is like the thing that you do. And then in your free time, you go off and you do whatever. Maybe you'll have your own individual experiences. Maybe you'll go out and, explore the town or city that you're in. But an experience house, I mean, it really felt like, I told someone when I was in undergrad, it was like such a frothy experience of creativity, of ideas. And for me, in a lot of ways, experience house felt like the college experience, but just condensed down into a few weeks. And so there's just like, I would wake up and I'm like, wow, there's so many people that I want to have conversations with, so many brains I want to pick. There's so many experiences that I want to make with people and co-create. And what I love is it's just such a yes culture where someone's like, yeah, do you want to combine these string musicians with this live painting with a live DJ and do it in the next hour? Yep, let's do it. And so there's just like this really amazing yes culture. And that's the biggest difference for me, is that like with a lot of other experiences, it's kind of about individually working on something. And if you happen to have collaboration with others, then that's great. But Experience House, at least for me in this experience, has been like, everyone is really like, how can I leverage the gifts that other people have? And how can I really create things, whether that's a dinner, an event? And I really like that.
One thing I actually wanted to say, Brenton, even before we started this, was just like, I just want to thank you for the way you've shown up here. Like just you've just been so like what you just described, I think is in part because it's like people like you are doing that. Right? It's like you're so yes. It's like you're really fully here to dig in and to create with people and to nerd out with people. And so it's like you've been one of the key elements, I feel, of that sort of laboratory. We've really like taken advantage of that and pushed that forward. So just like I'm just like so grateful that we had you come and that you chose to come. I just felt like I needed to express that.
I know.
What you just said.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's like this experience would just like not have been the same in any way without you. and even just the level of generosity that you've given around even like the speaker coaching, right? It's like that takes up a lot of fucking time. And you've been a team player in that sense, to just like show up for other people, even when like probably the talk content, you're like, I don't even know like if I care about this, right?
Sure.
It's like really coming from a place of like, I just want this to be good, and I want to support people, and I want to support in the ways I know how. So thank you.
Yeah.
Can you maybe tell me about some of the like the connections that you've made here? Like how have you experienced the people here?
Yeah. So I'll start with the easiest person to start with, which is good old Max Stossel, who is an Experience House OG. So a couple days before I came to Morocco, I texted a friend of mine who knows Max Stossel, and I was like, hey, what can you tell me about this Max Stossel guy? And he was like, look, super generous, really great spirit, and you guys will get along swimmingly. And so I was like, okay, cool. So when I arrived here in Marrakesh, he was one of the first people that I met probably in the first hour that I was here. And like, even in the first like 15 seconds, we just had like a nice spark. And I was like, I think I'm gonna like this guy. So we sat down for dinner and he said something to me that was just incredibly insightful. So, people were sort of like hugging each other, et cetera. And like, I take a little bit more time to sort of warm up to people physically. And he was like, you seem like you're a bit uncomfortable with initial physical touch. And I was like, yeah, I like to like know someone at least in one conversation. But like even the fact that he just noticed that was insane, having met me only for 20 minutes. And so, later that night that turned into a freestyle rap cipher about Pokemon and many other things. And when Max left from that beginning conversation to that end conversation, he was like, hey man, I know that I'm leaving, but I just want you to know that you're gonna be at my wedding. So it was just like such a beautiful way to end that connection. And I just had so many other connections with individuals where maybe in the beginning, I was like, I'm not fully connecting with this person, or I don't understand them, or like I just haven't seen them in enough lights. But I think there's something about being here for a month that you can just see the multidimensionality of everyone who is in this experience, and that the curation was done so well. And so even people who I might not have like fully resonated with at first, I was like, oh, this person's like really beautiful, and I'm really happy that like I had enough time to revise my impression of them. And so I've just made so many incredible connections from other artists and creatives who I want to learn from and who I want to continue to collaborate with, from people who are experts in business and finance, and just like learning from them, but also seeing their softer side. And so I've just made a lot of connections that I know I'm going to hold on to, and I'm just so excited about having a community of people with whom I feel I really resonate with, and that's a rare thing in this world.
I'm so happy to hear that. I knew you'd connect with Max. That's great. I didn't realize the extent to which you guys would have rap battles.
I mean, I didn't either.
So good. Who do you think Experience House is for? Like, who is this made for? What kind of people would love to be at something like this?
I feel like Experience House in many ways is made for a person who wants to live life intentionally and who perhaps feels that there's still a hunger or a thirst or a yearning to find other like-minded people who also want to live in that way. I think it's also for people who want to immerse themselves in a new culture. I mean, I know there are a lot of places where people aren't as interested in travel or in going to a new location, and it can feel a bit alienating or like one doesn't belong, and when people have that sort of parochial mindset. And so I think it's also for someone who wants to explore and step out of their comfort zone. And I think ultimately it's for people who want to create things in this world, especially experiences. But I think that the beautiful thing about Experience House is there have been people for whom experience design perhaps may not be in their title, but because they bring some kind of offering, whether it's something in business, whether it's their visual art, whether it's their ability to sing, they already get plugged into an ecosystem where it just flows naturally to want to experiment with new art forms and new experience designs and new just ways of connecting with people. And so if you're someone out there who has wanted to make something, who's wanted to connect with the community, who will encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, but in a loving and supportive way, and maybe you feel a bit lost, like people in your community don't understand you, I would definitely check out Experience House, because that's exactly how I felt. And I feel like if you also feel the same way, then it might just be for you. Yeah, no worries, take it down.
My last question is, how are you leaving this house different than how you came in? Like, how has your life, your career, your business, your perspective changed from being here?
I think I'm leaving this experience changed in many profound ways. We were at an experience that someone co-created and curated last night around intimacy and celebrating the feminine. So it was like this amazing circle of just powerful and artistic women who led people in this hour-long experience of meditation and touch and sense. And it was a time to surrender. There was even a part where we were blindfolded in the experience. And so there was a moment of very deep trust. And I remember after the experience, first of all, everyone was like, I wish that had lasted for 5 hours instead of 1. But what really struck me was a lot of the men had shared, they were like, I actually don't have that much tenderness in my life, or at least opportunities for it. And I think that when we think about this idea of tenderness, it's usually in the context of like romance, right? But what I love about Experience House is that like so many people have a love for each other in so many different kind of ways. And that's not something that I necessarily experience, especially, jumping around all these big cities where people are running at 100 miles an hour all the time. And so just to have that opportunity was a new thing for me, and I'm leaving with a sense of appreciating that. Something else I'm leaving with is, I remember the first day I walked in, there was a sticky note in my room that said, "You're welcome to bring your fullest self." And that's also something that Sam and I had talked about in our first interview conversation. And I had always been a little bit reticent about that, a little bit hesitant to bring my fullest self, and for a number of reasons. But I really challenged myself in this last month to be like, all right, yep, I have experience in speaker coaching and in performing and in yoga and in speaking multiple languages and in freestyle. And can I find containers to bring all of these different abilities? And can I, as a man and as a creative person, sit with the discomfort of what people might think in really bringing my multidimensionality? And so I think I'm walking away with a greater comfort in that and a confidence in that. And yeah, I think in a more tangible sense, I've picked up, I think the masterminds and the information exchanges have been incredibly beautiful. And I've picked up so many, not even tidbits, because that doesn't even do it justice. I've picked up so many nuggets and even gold bars of information for people where I'm like, oh yeah, this can really accelerate my creative path, or here's a tool or a set of frameworks that I'd never thought of. And I'm really looking forward to implementing a lot of those things in my creative business, in my just artistic life in general. And I really think that I would not have had a lot of these tools without Experience House.
Anything else that you want to share? With me, with the world? It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I just would share that there are so many people here who are just extraordinary human beings, and yet they're so humble at the same time. Where I've had so many conversations where I'm like, do you realize how brilliant of a human you are? And yet you're so giving with your talents and your time. And that's such a rare thing in this world, to combine people who are masters of their craft, but also are just so generous in their energy. And I have to thank you, Sam, for taking time to really curate that energy. And yeah, this has been a really beautiful and profound experience. And I appreciate your hammam mastering as well. That's been great. But yeah, I'm very grateful that